We often think about being present as, a purely mental game, something you just achieve through intense focus.
Right.
But the stack of sources you've given us shows it's actually, well, it's more like a full-body sport. It demands this alignment between thought, spirit, and even your posture.
Exactly.
So today we're diving deep into how ancient spiritual wisdom, modern mindfulness, and cutting-edge social science all arrive at the same conclusion, that the present moment is the only true source of power.
And what we're looking at here is a real convergence. I mean, whether the wisdom comes from the Buddha, from Eckhart Tolle, or from these rigorous psychological studies by people like Cuddy, they all point to the same crisis.
Which is?
The relentless mental drain, this chronic worry and rumination. So our mission in this deep dive is to find the practical blueprint. How do we stop that drain and start using our physical state to actively, anchor ourselves in the now?
That's the central challenge, isn't it? It's about merging that internal work, the observation of your thoughts, the external work, the embodiment of strength. So let's unpack the primary issue first, because what the sources say about our default mode is, honestly, it's pretty startling.
Mm-hmm.
They suggest that chronic unhappiness, that sort of background hum of anxiety and dissatisfaction, is getting dangerously close to becoming the accepted, normal human condition. We're just learning to live with persistent suffering.
And if we ask why suffering seems to be the default state, it's because our internal alert system simply won't switch off.
Okay.
We intuitively think that stress is caused only by a current visible threat, the deadline, the argument, that near miss on the freeway.
Sure.
But the reality the data shows is that the alarm signals in our brains are constantly activated. And not by current danger, but by endlessly dredging up things that went wrong in the past or catastrophizing about what might happen in the future.
It sounds absolutely exhausting. It's like leaving the smoke detector on full blast 24/7, even when there's no fire.
That's a perfect analogy.
And this is where the brain science really backs it up. Studies have confirmed that people who struggle most to settle into the present, the ones who are perpetually caught in planning or regret, they have an amygdala.
The primitive part of the brain?
Right, that immediate fight or flight center that is just running on maximum alert.
Exactly. And that state of maximum alert is instantaneous, and it's unconscious. Your body is perpetually primed for a threat that isn't actually in the room.
So what's the paradox here?
Well, the ultimate paradox is that many people genuinely believe the path to solving their unhappiness is to worry about it more.
To think their way out of it.
Yes. To spend hours ruminating on the problem until they finally crack the code.
But the clinical data is conclusive on this. Rumination is completely counterproductive. It actually reduces our capacity for real problem solving. It's paralyzing.
I remember how one researcher put it, and it just stuck with me.
What's that?
Rumination is the problem, not the solution. We are literally making ourselves less capable by trying too hard to think our way out of a state of being.
That takes us right to the core philosophical trap, then.
It does. It's often called psychological time. The mind is constantly seeking satisfaction or peace or salvation somewhere external to the present and always in the future.
The if-only mindset.
The if-only mindset, exactly.
Yeah.
If I get the promotion, if I pay off the debt, if I can just fix this past failure, then I'll finally be happy. This continuous resistance to the reality of the now, because the now is never perfect enough, is what keeps us stuck in suffering.
So if you're living entirely in future hope or future anxiety, you're just perpetually denying the only time you actually exist.
Right. So if the mind trap is built on thought, where's the escape hatch?
Good question.
The sources suggest it's not in thinking better, but in changing our fundamental operating mode. It turns out we have two main mental modes for engaging with reality.
Okay, let's break those down.
The first mode is focused entirely on fixing things. Let's call it the acting mode. This mode operates by constantly judging the reality we are in right now against some idealized perfect reality we carry around in our heads.
And that comparison is relentless. It's always saying, the world shouldn't be this way, or I shouldn't feel this way.
Exactly. And when you're constantly comparing reality to fantasy, the result is predictable. Permanent dissatisfaction. You can't win.
Right, because the fantasy will always be pristine and reality will always be messy. You're just in a state of perpetually fighting the weather.
Which brings us to the alternative, the existing mode. This mode is fundamentally about suspending that judgment. It's about allowing things to be as they are, moment to moment. It's the ability to simply notice the weather without trying to change the forecast.
Okay, but I have to challenge that on behalf of, our listeners. Isn't suspending judgment just another way of saying being passive or ignoring real problems? If I stop judging, won't I just become complacent?
That's a crucial question. The difference is subtle, but it's absolutely vital. The acting mode generates action through tension and dissatisfaction.
Okay.
The existing mode invites suspending that tension. It means we see difficulties from a completely new angle because we aren't using all our internal energy fighting the current moment. This shift lets us change our internal landscape regardless of external circumstances,
Hmm.
which, paradoxically, makes our next action far more effective.
I love the analogy some of the spiritual sources use. They describe pure consciousness as like being on a high mountain, a point of observation.
Yeah.
You look down and you see the entire landscape, including the tiny version of yourself rushing around below. You gain the ability to realize that the mind is thinking rather than being lost in the thoughts. The thoughts are just weather passing over the terrain.
And that idea is crystallized perfectly in the story of Hannah. She was struggling deeply with self-criticism and anxiety until she adopted this viewpoint. She began viewing her overwhelming thoughts and feelings, not as facts about her character, but simply as passing weather patterns.
So when she felt shame, she would just note, it's a bit stormy today.
Precisely. The key wasn't trying to stop the storm.
It was recognizing that she wasn't the storm itself.
Exactly. She stopped trying to control the internal weather or criticize herself for having a dark cloud. She just observed it with curiosity, realizing the sun would inevitably return. And this leads us directly to the power of acceptance.
Which, again, we have to clarify, is not passive resignation.
Not at all. True acceptance, or surrender, is abandoning internal resistance only to this tiny segment of reality we call the now.
Okay, give us an image for that.
Picture being stuck in thick mud. The acting mode spends all its energy yelling, "I shouldn't be in the mud, this is terrible."
Right.
The existing mode acknowledges, okay, I am stuck in the mud right now.
Mm.
That acceptance, that zero mental labeling or judgment, is what clears the mental space to figure out the best way to get out. You can't fight the moment and act effectively at the same time.
So if that's the mental side, where do we find the anchor? The wisdom traditions suggest it's not in more thinking, but in something far more tangible.
Body.
The body. It's often described as the doorway to the authentic state. Because your emotions are simply the reflection of your mind's activity, felt physically.
And this is where modern social science provides the perfect feedback loop. Amy Cuddy's pioneering work on embodied presence completely flipped the traditional understanding. We assume that if we feel confident, we stand tall.
Mm.
Her research shows the inverse is just as true. How we stand profoundly affects our internal psychology. Our body literally shapes our mind.
And when we talk about being powerful here, it's really not about external authority or aggression, is it? The sources define a very specific hormonal signature for responsible power, the kind that leads to effective action.
That's right. That signature is high testosterone, which drives assertiveness, action, decision-making, combined with low cortisol.
Cortisol, the stress hormone.
The stress hormone that drives defensiveness and risk avoidance. So that sweet spot, high assertiveness, low stress provides the psychological courage and the internal resistance you need to meet challenges head on.
Okay, so now let's consider the danger of contraction. It's basically the physics of powerlessness.
Yes.
When we feel overwhelmed or ashamed or inadequate, that textbook imposter experience, our bodies instinctively contract. We hunch, we fold our arms, we restrict our movement, we make ourselves small.
And that contracted physical state doesn't just look defeated, it scientifically reduces our most critical cognitive tools. When we are physically closed off, we inhibit our executive functions.
So our ability to reason clearly, our mental flexibility.
All of it. Our capacity to control our attention. The very tools you need most in a high-pressure situation are minimized simply because your shoulders are dropped.
We see this powerful, subtle trap in action in that remarkable eye hunch experiment.
Oh, that was fascinating.
Researchers were looking at how something as simple as the size of a device like your smartphone versus a larger tablet affected behavior.
And they found that the more participants had to contract their bodies into that classic eye hunch posture to use the smaller devices, the less assertive they became in totally unrelated social settings right after.
Just think about that consequence. A tiny, seemingly neutral physical contraction, just looking down at your phone for a while, can unconsciously reinforce feelings of impotence and submission.
It makes you less likely to speak up or push back when you need to.
The great news here, though, is that the fix is profoundly simple.
Power posing.
Power posing. That expansive, open posture, feet apart, hands on hips, or even arms stretched high in a V, it's universally recognized as an expression of pride or victory.
And the research confirmed it. Simply holding or even just vividly imagining one of these expansive postures for as little as 2 minutes can significantly change your internal metrics. You actually feel more powerful, more in control, and more willing to take calculated risks.
And this is more than just feeling good, it translates to real-world efficacy.
Yeah, I love the story of Will Cuddy, an actor, no relation to the researcher, by the way, who adopted this practice. Before a major audition, he spent 2 minutes in that expansive V pose.
And what happened?
He said he walked into the room, focused not on getting the part, but on genuinely enjoying the process of performing. He performed authentically because he had physically primed himself for presence and for courage.
And we see this physical embodiment of strength repeated across cultures, too. From the universal V shape of triumph to the New Zealand All Blacks performing the haka before a game.
Right?
These aren't just displays of aggression. They are expansive signals of status, pride, and internal connection, serving to align the body and mind in a single, powerful present moment. Okay, so let's take all these insights about mind and body alignment and create a practical toolkit for you, the listener. Let's start with breaking the tyranny of the automatic pilot.
Most of our lives are spent on that automatic pilot, functioning on habit and routine, largely unconscious. We have to disrupt this habit loop. It can be something minimal. Consciously taking a different route to work, or simply changing the seat you always use in meetings. Doing routine things at half speed, like consciously washing the dishes slowly, forces your brain to re-engage with the present moment.
And the urgency of this is staggering. There's a statistic from one of the sources that truly shocked me.
I think I know the one you mean.
It says if you were only fully conscious for 2 of the 16 waking hours in a day, your effective lived experience only amounts to about 6 years and 3 months.
Wow.
That realization that most of our biological life is just spent on autopilot is a tremendous motivator to pay attention right now.
And beyond self-awareness, presence is fundamentally about connection, and that demands active listening. We could look to the anecdote involving the famous negotiator William Urey, who was mediating a dispute with Hugo Chavez.
I remember this.
Urey arrived prepared to offer solutions, but he realized the most effective path forward was simply to stop and listen, to suspend judgment and allow the other person's space to be fully heard and honest.
And that's the magic of listening as presence, right? When you allow someone that space, that defensive us versus them mentality just dissolves.
Exactly. You're not trying to fix them or debate them. You are accepting their reality in that moment, which opens the door for real influence later on.
Speaking of internal resistance, let's address the elephant in the room. That feeling of not being good enough.
The imposter experience.
The imposter experience. The research suggests we should stop calling it a syndrome and call it an experience because almost everyone feels it, especially highly competent people. It's that deep, persistent belief that we don't deserve our achievements.
And the cruel irony is that success doesn't solve it.
No, in fact, success often makes it worse. It sets an ever higher, impossible standard for the next achievement. So how do we break free from this relentless self-monitoring?
We have to shift from focusing on the result to focusing entirely on the process.
I love the insight from the author Neil Gaiman on this.
Oh, it's perfect. He noted that you never figure out how to write a novel. You just learn how to write the one you are working on now. You learn the skill of the present task.
And we have to apply that to our own lives. When you focus intensely on the quality and effort of the present action, the how, rather than that desired distant result, the what, you unlock intrinsic motivation.
You overcome the fear of failure because the success is built into the quality of the effort you are making right now.
And this focus on process can be achieved through what the sources call self-nudges.
I like the term auto-cuchikar, self-nudging. These are small, consistent modifications to your body language or your mindset that appeal to your natural tendencies.
So these minimal, non-intimidating adjustments, like consciously choosing an open posture before walking into a tense room, or simply reframing pre-presentation anxiety as excitement instead of fear.
Right. Those are the sustainable steps that lead to long-term, self-reinforcing changes in your sense of presence.
So after this deep dive, what is the core lesson we are taking away here?
Well, I think it's that presence is not some magical state. It's a deliberate, integrated practice. It's achieved through a combination of internal awareness learning to simply observe thoughts and accept the current reality and external embodiment.
The mind and the body.
The mind and the body. You have to actively use your body to signal confidence, openness, and strength, not defense. When the body and mind finally align in the present moment, we access a much greater, more capable intelligence.
And finally, a thought for you to carry forward, and it's directly related to the impermanence we discussed. Since every external accomplishment, wealth, status, material success, is temporary and subject to change, destined to fail or diminish sooner or later, doesn't that fundamentally shift our focus?
Hmm.
If the destination is always dissolving, is the how of the journey, the intrinsic value and quality of our consciousness right now, not infinitely more important and more real than the external where we think we're going? Pay attention to that quality today.